Also roped in Dr Ngqapheli Mchunu, research specialist in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Research Division at the Human Sciences Research Council, to weigh in on some of what we've been hearing. Dr Mchunu, thank you so much for your time. I want you to just give a sense in terms of what we've been hearing. I want to just draw on just some of the things that, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi was talking about, particularly what was not in his statement, as he said, and that's, of course, the relationship between the IPID's Ngabinde, who then became Mchunu's chief of staff, as well as Mchunu speaking essentially about infiltration, not only at the SAPS, but also at the NPA, at IPID. I mean, what do you make of just also some of the things that we are hearing this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Onachi. Good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you for having me. So I think General Mkhwanazi made it a point to highlight that what is being asked or questioned about is not, it does not have anything to do with the statement that he had drawn up and so on too. However, the questions that are being asked by the advocates obviously kind of give us an idea on the relationship Minister Mchunu had with certain members or certain individuals. And whilst obviously, like I said, Mkhwanazi did say that he was not necessarily speaking on what was in the statement, he did kind of paint a picture that shows a relationship between Ngabinde and the current minister who's on leave, Minister Mchunu, and the relationship obviously he has with Ngabinde. So in terms of the infiltration, I think what becomes important to kind of understand is that obviously because this is day one, we are going to kind of get quite a lot of background information, and obviously depending on the evidence leader and the questions that he chooses to pose, we may be receiving information or maybe getting information as and when we go, or maybe there may be a bit of jumping in between the relationship that former minister had and what ended up happening in these criminal justice system institutions, including the NPA and IDAC as well, which seems to have been infiltrated, but at least according to Mkhwanazi. And IDAC, of course, was a fairly new institution. So the fact that it was infiltrated, according to the general, kind of speaks volume on how far deep the graft goes.
And just talking about how far deep that infiltration within SABC goes, I want to also point on some of the things that he said. I mean, he talked about how in 2024, the Gauteng Organized Crime Unit was investigating a case which resulted in a threat to the investigating team itself. I mean, this is fascinating stuff. He says a tactical unit was then set up, to provide security to that particular team that was investigating. But then it turns out that that team, which was sent in to protect the team that was investigating whatever crime at the time, was also infiltrated. And that's when the PKTT was then called in, to assist in Gauteng. He was then asked, does he think that that infiltration within SAPS was only limited to KwaZulu-Natal and KZN? But he said no. It basically spoke to the breadth and length from Western Cape to Gauteng to KZN, because he did mention the killing of a police officer, Charles Kinnear, in the Western Cape. I mean, what does this begin to tell us in terms of also just the timing of all of this, in terms of how widespread it is, but also how far back it goes?
It essentially tells us that SABs have been quote unquote captured for the longest time. And it also highlights the fact that the entire institution essentially is riddled with corruption. And obviously, this is us commenting or opining based on what the general has said. I mean, there may be other information proving such, or maybe contradicting such. So we'll have to wait and see. But based on what the general has said, it is clear that the entire SABC has been infiltrated by corrupt forces. And you'll remember that most times when corruption infiltrates an institution, it does not exist in isolation. It affects the entire value chain. And that is the kind of picture that he has tried to paint. Hence, for example, when he spoke on July 6th, he also mentioned not just members of the police, but he mentioned the judiciary. He mentioned state institutions and state intelligence. Because even today, he ended up highlighting that there was a counterintelligence that had to be brought into play, or that came into play. But he was also quick to say that some of the additional information that you would get on that particular matter would be through the state intelligence cluster within Parliament. So it highlights that the SABC as an institution certainly did battle with corruption, and there doesn't seem to have been much to try and get rid of that corruption, which can also explain many of the challenges that SABC had, particularly when it comes to securing high-profile convictions, including, for example, those who murdered Sandiso Magaba.
Yeah. I want to pause, Dr. Mchunu, and just go back to what we saw happening in as far as deliberations are concerned in Parliament. It really does also speak to, with how particularly South Africans want to understand and align the Madlanga Commission to what we are seeing in Parliament. I mean, firstly, just what do you make of this morning's deliberations? And given that Parliament is in the main constitutionally bound, to conduct its work openly and transparently under, what conditions do you think can parliamentary committees justifiably close these proceedings to the media and the public as we've seen today?
Yes. So what we saw today essentially was something that constitutional law experts would probably want to weigh in, because we have an ad hoc committee sitting before Parliament, which is obviously an oversight institution. Parliament is, of course, has the responsibility, as per the Constitution, to exercise oversight, and obviously through ad hoc committees. However, the decisions that were made to basically shut down certain proceedings and unavail them to the public is something that will have to be looked at, and we need to examine the grounds for such. It may also result in a court appearance or a court ruling, because we have had similar situations even with certain institutions. For example, the Public Protector in 2016. What ended up happening was that we needed a court ruling which reaffirmed the enforcing powers that the Office of the Public Protector has. So if from a transparency and democracy standpoint, the ad hoc committee deciding to not broadcast all the proceedings would have to be examined based on what was in the best interest. Was it a matter of transparency, or was it a matter of security?
Yeah.
So if it is determined, or if it is deemed that for security reasons certain parts needed to be not broadcasted, then you can justify the decision. But I don't think it's something we can determine right now. We may need a court of law, or just clarity on how the proceedings should proceed in Parliament.
All right, Dr. Mchunu, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it.